for Mr. Colin Baker.
You all right? Lunch was great. We had a really good lunch, didn't we? Because we didn't go with them, you know, the people. We said we'd have lunch with them. We did. We had it at the same time. You know, but they went to a restaurant around the corner. We went to a big hotel and had a great time. Sylvester. It was all a con, really. No, we had a great lunch, didn't we? Where are they? Where are our lunch companions? It was all right, wasn't it? We had fun. Worth every dime. I had to pay for it. Here I am, at your mercy. Can I take my jacket off? It's a bit warm. That's all. You'll be very glad to hear. I'm here to take your questions and hopefully answer them. So, if anyone has any questions, they're allowed to ask me. Here, a friend.
I have a couple of questions. The first question I'd like to ask is, out of all the stories you did, out of all the stories you did, which guest actor did you enjoy working with the most?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I never had that one before. Out of all the stories I did, which guest actor did I enjoy working with most? The first one that springs to mind is Brian Blessed. Because, I mean, Brian is just enormous in every way. I mean, he's a big man. I don't know if it hit the papers over here, but he decided that he wanted to climb Everest. And so he persuaded a film crew to go with him. And he reconstructed a climb that came to grief, about 80 years ago, I think. I can't remember the dates, when 2 climbers were killed. Going up a difficult route. And he, as an actor who had never done any serious climbing before, went off with the film crew to do it. And when he came back, I saw him being interviewed in the program, and he had some kind of mystical experience up there in Tibet, and he lost about 4 stone and came back kind of transfigured in personality, which means he's even bigger than he was before. I mean, he's a fascinating man, and he was great to work with on that program, because when you're that kind of big, and I don't mean just size, I mean in spirit, nothing frightens you. So I can't actually tell this story because it's mixed company. But we have a problem when we're filming episodes of Doctor Who that come 10 o'clock on the last night of recording in the studio, if you haven't got everything in the can, then that's it. Now, those scenes are cut or they don't happen ever. Because, you know, the units are so strong that the plugs are pulled at 10. Very occasionally you can persuade a film crew to work on after 10, but you know, they get paid thousands of pounds a second for doing so. So the bosses of the BBC tend to disapprove of it. Well, we have one very complicated scene left to do, which involved Brian and myself and Nicola running down a corridor, would you be amazed to hear? And there were some creatures in it, I can't remember the name of them now, that he only had one line at the end of the scene, which was, let's say they were called the Zobs. The Zobs won't find us here, let's say, was the line. So we did this long, complicated shot, ran to the room, shut the door, and he forgot the name of the Zobs. So he made up a word, which unfortunately was unprintable. We didn't make it up, it was already in existence. But he was so cross that he forgot it, that's what he said. And only he would get away with it, you see, because no one's going to say to Brian Blessed, look, you've ruined that shot, and we will never be able to get it now. In fact, they had to rebuild the set in the next studio and do the scene again. But that's why I like him, because he's fearless, he climbs Everest, he pushes everything to the limit. And he's a very generous, warm man as well. I mean, he's just fascinating to be with. Who else? There are many people who... But he certainly stands head and shoulders, as far as I can remember. Oh, I like William Gaunt as well. He was nice to work with. He was in Revelation of the Daleks, who played, I thought it was a great character, that mercenary. Somebody will tell me his name now. Oh, Very good. Orsini. I liked him as well. He was great to work with. Did I mention Paul Darrow? No, I didn't, did I?
Never really did any, historical stories.
No, I didn't.
Which eras might you have liked to have done stories in?
Yeah, historical stories are fun. Because I heard Sylvester earlier talking about his love of historical stories. And I would have liked to have done that as well. Which era of history? Well, I've always been very fond of the Crusades and all that time. I kind of fancy myself as Lancelot and all that goes with being Lancelot.
Like Guinevere, of course.
Almost. I didn't say Guinevere, you said Guinevere. That was a good period. What other periods? Oh, gosh. I think the Renaissance was an interesting time to meet up with the Borgias and people like that. I think it'd be quite nice if the Doctor was seen removing the poison from the Borgias' poison traps. I also, one of the best stories I ever saw was Talons of Weng Chiang, which not only was the most frightening story I think ever. I mean, they talk about Doctor Who being scary now and too violent. I thought that was a very violent story, and I thought it was excellent. And that dummy was really scary. But correct me if I'm wrong. Was it not at the end of that the Fire of London started? No, I'm wrong. What was the Fire of London one? Which? Visitation. Oh well, there you are. What happened at the end of Weng Chiang? Nothing much. The little bad guys got killed. Yes. Well, there we are then. I'm glad I started that story. What? You still there? What was your question?
That was it.
I answered it, didn't I?
Thank you.
Sort of. I did my best. Historical stories, yes. Yes, I would like to have done more of those. I mean, almost any period, really. I mean, am I the only Doctor who hasn't had a historical story? I think I might be. No, yes, I did. Thank you. Was I playing a part? Was it me? Yes, I did do one. I meant not Robert Louis Stevenson, no. George Stevenson and his rocket. Yes. Yes, that was. Oh, Kate O'Mara, that's another guest I enjoyed working with. And H.G. Wells. Yes, that was quite fun actually, meeting H.G. Wells. Calling him Herbert all the way through and only realising who it was at the end. I thought, now that's the kind of writing that I think makes Doctor Who. That's the kind of nice little twist that I enjoy. Hello.
Hi. Okay, first of all, I'd just like to say there's a group of us coming down from Canada, and I'd like to inform you of the great following you have up there.
That's nice. Thank you, Canada. Who's from Canada?
A few of us.
Hey! Who's from Ecuador? Yariba, yariba. No, that's the Roadrunner. That's nothing to do with Ecuador. Oh, Andale, vámonos, muchachos. Yes, sorry.
No, my question was, it was during your first full season as the Doctor in season 22 that more serious political undertones started to come into the series, and I'd like to know how you felt about that and if you had any influence in the more seriousness of the show.
What particular political undertones are you thinking of?
Vengeance on Varos, the you were talking about earlier, and more seriousness compared to the previous years of the show.
Yes, I suppose that's true. Partly because we had two writers on that series, Philip Martin and the best writer of the lot, Robert Holmes, thank you very much. And I found over the years that all the stories I've enjoyed most have always been written by Robert Holmes. And Robert Holmes always had some particular message or axe to grind that thinly disguised under a story was there if you looked for it. I mean, reduced to its most basic in Two Doctors, it was eating people is not very nice, you know? I don't know, we should have had lunch. Hey! It's when they bid for lunch, they didn't realise it was them. They were. And Varos had a very serious message behind it. I think that's purely the chance of the writers. I personally have no input, although I approve of it. I mean, I think at its best, writing should be, on first count, entertaining. I think to actually preach at people without entertaining them is A, bad policy, and B, bad writing. So I think it should be entertaining, but also should have some substance. So at the same time as being entertained, underneath it, thank you, fellow intellectuals. Underneath it, there is something there that you could actually think, yes, that's an interesting point. And Barros certainly had that. And it's quite interesting that there's a television program being made about how television programs can be abused in the same way that some say religion was abused at one time to control people. That there are some people that maintain that religion being the opiate of the masses and all that, that it was used in 500 years ago to keep the proletariat in their place. In the same way, it can be argued that perhaps television could be used, and maybe being used for all we know, for exactly the same purpose. And Philip Martin felt strong enough about that to write a story about it, and saying that violence being used on television to terrify people, to keep them entertained, was not necessarily a very good thing. The extraordinary thing was we got a huge reaction in England from the press about this violent program. So in a way, it was ironic that exactly what he was preaching against he was accused of, but it also made its point in a kind of convoluted way. So I think that's very interesting. But at the same time, if it hadn't been a good story, which it was, it wouldn't have been worth doing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm pretty good.
You don't have to kneel down to ask questions,
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say that the first time I saw you was in a pre-production picture in the back of the Starlog magazine. And to be quite honest, I said, I'm not going to like this guy. I'm going to hate him.
I like honesty, don't you?
The show has gotten
Be honest.
hooked. But to be completely honest, Miss Baker, the minute you sat up in the TARDIS and uttered that wonderful line of change, you became the Doctor.
Oh, shucks. Thanks.
Okay. A couple years down the road from now, Sylvester is gone. Powers at BBC decree, that the persona, well, not so much the persona, but the, how would I put this? The appearance of the Doctor returns.
I don't know.
Now,
I mean, I come back. Is that what you're saying?
you come back, yes, but no longer the Technicolor Dreamcoat, as some have called it, and not the austere black outfit that you would like. How would you play the Doctor?
How would I play it?
Yes.
Oh, exactly the same.
Exactly. A British calico.
How very nice. I don't got to jump over there. A British. Have I just taken myself?
So I don't know what happened with that. That was just something that I just didn't want to deal with.
Thank you very much. I have. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you very much.
I'm going to have to probably go back to the old one and
Very
look
nice
at
of
it
you.
and see how I did it, because right now I think it will have lots of it because I've got other things going on, but
Ever since I've been playing the Doctor, people have been kind enough to give me these little cat badges. This is a Canadian British calico, which Michael has very kindly given me. It's arrived 1 year too late to do one thing which I always said I would do if I could, which is when people gave me a badge, I would wear it as the Doctor. But that's when I envisaged myself playing the part for 28 years. But because I played the Doctor on stage last year in The Ultimate Adventure, I was able to wear a different cat badge on every show. So I did something like 4 months, let me work it out, I did over 120, 130 shows. During that time, I wore, at least once, every cat badge that anybody's ever given me. So I was able to keep my promise, which is quite nice. But this one I'll have to wait till the next time I play the Doctor. Thank you. Who's turn? We're over here now. Hi there.
Doctor, sit down. I wanted to kind of talk about something that Sylvester was talking about the direction the Doctor is going and who he really is.
Yep.
I was wondering, do you know which one it was? I'm not sure. It might have been the fifth Doctor, or excuse me, the five Doctors, when they were talking about some of the history of Gallifrey when Rassilon was starting everything. You don't remember who they said it was who was the one who invented that living metal that they used again in Silver Nemesis?
Nope.
You know?
I wasn't in either of those, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
And you've probably seen it more than I have, so I haven't seen it at all.
Only once, really.
I saw the Fifth Doctor's once, I haven't seen Silver Nemesis.
Well, the way they were doing it then in Silver Nemesis, the way it was talking to the Doctor, it sort of seemed like they were pointing out the fact that the Doctor was Rassilon.
Oh,
all in wrestling.
Yeah, it's like he had created everything, and then he's not one of the Time Lords now, as far as we know, at least as far as I know.
Oh, I think he's a Time Lord.
Well, he just disappeared somewhere.
What, the Doctor?
No, Rassilon.
Oh, Rassilon.
So it's almost like he made himself into the Doctor, which is why you never know who the Doctor really is. You know,
Maybe.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't he about the only one who keeps changing faces all the time?
Oh, no, the Master
just
doesn't.
regenerated.
The Master can regenerate.
Well, he's always the same.
No, he's changed from Roger Delgado into Anthony Ainley.
Well, yeah, that way. But he's always got the mustache and beard. You know?
But he'd used up his regenerations.
Yeah, he did use it up, and then he stole somebody's body.
Yeah. So I think all the Time Lords can do it. Just that the Doctor's the only one who seems to need it as often. Because he gets into so much trouble. Most of them go around, watching TV and going down to the local bar for a drink, which tends not to be quite so hazardous. So just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean to say it's not happening.
Yeah,
Romana changed.
Yeah, that was so Romana took over. She just decided she could change at will, it seemed, because she went through 2 or 3 different phases before she
It's tricky, isn't
picked that
it?
one.
These questions you should really be asking producers and scriptwriters.
Yeah.
I'm just an actor fella, They give me the script. If I think something's ridiculous, I try and argue about it. Once or twice I have noticed inconsistencies which I have brought to their attention and they've been kind enough to listen to or ignore. But in the main, your guess is as good as mine. Really? You didn't want to hear that, did you?
I don't know, I'm just kind of curious. Are you wearing 2 watches?
Yeah.
Really, this time?
This is Cleveland. This is England.
I see.
I'm a Time Lord, come on.
Yeah, really.
My mathematics is so poor. When I want to phone home to my wife, I think now is this a sensible time to phone? Which it is actually now. She's got the kids to bed. Just. Anytime in the next 2 hours, I'll be able to ring her. This side, okay. How do you do, Dee?
Hi. First I want to say my name is Jill Agile, and I'm really glad to finally
Georgia?
be able to meet Jill Agile.
Jill. Hello, Jill.
I'm really glad to be able to meet you.
Say hello, Jill, everybody. There. We're a big family, aren't we? It's nice.
I had to write this down or else I'd forget it.
Okay.
Okay, it said, you said...
3 pounds of broccoli, 2 pounds. Sorry, President Bush.
You said in the CB hotline that you'd like to write a novel someday. I'd like to know what kind you'd write, and also if you were writing a Doctor Who novel, who'd you use as the villain and the companion?
Oh, right. Interesting questions. You've had time to think about that, haven't you?
Yep.
I had time to think about the answer. Yes, people ask me, would you like, writing a novel is not something that every day I wake up thinking, I want to write a novel. But people say, would you like to write a novel? I go, yep. Because I think it's probably quite a nice thing to do, and it has the advantage of being something you don't have to be employed to do. There's an actor, a friend of mine called Simon Williams, who has appeared in a story with Sylvester. He played a military man, is all I know. You haven't seen the episodes here, have you? Was it Remembrance of the Daleks? Well, Simon Williams is a long-time friend of mine, even though he worked with Sylvester, and didn't work with me. All the time I was playing that in Doctor Who, I tried to get Simon Williams into it, and every time John Leventon said, no, he's not right for that, but eventually he did. Anyway, Sam decided to, which is what I call him, Sam, to write a book about 3 years ago. And he did it. It became a bestseller in England. It's a very good book, actually. I'll think of its title in a minute. It's about Talking Oscars, it's called. Talking Oscars. It's about showbiz. And it's a very good thriller. And it's going to be made into a movie, and he's made a lot of money out of it. And he keeps saying to me, It's so easy. You've just got to sit down and do it. It's actually quite easy. And I enjoy writing. I've written the odd article and things like that. I quite enjoy writing. I write letters to my mother.
But you don't know what kind of a book you'd write, though. If just
well, yes, I do, actually.
Science fiction?
I suspect it would be fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I read a lot of kind of more fantasy than science fiction and thoroughly enjoy it. And it would probably have to be funny, I'm afraid. Now, that's not, to say it would be funny is probably wrong enough, because other people must find it funny, but it would be probably trying to be funny, because I have great difficulty in taking anything much seriously. And a writer, an English writer that I much admire at the moment is called Terry Pratchett. Anybody read it here? Those are funny books. I mean, just to give you an idea, there's one called Mort, which is about death. Sounds a funny subject, doesn't it? And death takes on an apprentice. And it's just so funny because the apprentice gets it all wrong and gets the real wrong people, and Death has to take them back and apologise. It's very, very funny, and then the books are funny. And there's one wonderful scene in one of them, and I won't spoil any more by going on about it, but there's a wonderful scene where the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are riding. It's the big time has come, Armageddon, right? And they've been riding a long way, so they stop at a pub for a drink, right? When they're in the pub, someone steals one of their horses. So when they come out, death, famine, war and plague have this huge argument about who gets the horses. And then 3 of them ride off, leaving, I think it's Famine, standing back there saying, "This is not fair! You cannot have the 3 horsemen and 1 pedestrian of the apocalypse!" That's the kind of writing that makes me laugh. It's just... I mean, turns things which, are a bit serious upside down and makes you laugh at them.
But how about if you were writing a Doctor Who story? I mean, what kind of a companion would you write, or who would you want for your villain?
I'd like to have an alien companion if I was writing a story, rather than an Earth girl or Adric. I'd like to have an alien companion. There was one I did the stage play last year. And we had a thing called Zog, which I was talking about earlier. And Zog was great, this little tiny furry thing, which was kind of cute, and spoke a gibberish language. And I suppose really I don't want anyone to argue with me. So if they're talking in a foreign language, then you can usually ignore them. It'd be interesting to have an alien companion, or a penguin, or whatever, anything different. For villain, I personally would like to have had a really good story with the Master. And and when Eric Saward and I were still talking to each other, I asked him if it was going to be possible at some point to do a story, and I had this idea that the Doctor and the Master should by some freak change places, so that I would be the Master and he would be the Doctor. And Anne thought that was a great idea. And obviously the Master, i.e. me, would say, no, I'm the Doctor, you got it quite wrong, I am the Doctor. Whereas the real me in the Master's body would be going around saying, you must listen to me, I'm the Doctor. So the Doctor, and obviously the one who looks like the Doctor, gets believed. I mean, it would be quite an interesting idea of a format.
You should write that book.
Maybe I should.
Yeah.
Maybe I should.
Thank you.
Hello. How are you? You okay?
Doing great.
Good.
Okay, can you tell us a little about the time flight parachute jump that you did for charity?
Oh, yeah.
And after that...
Could I do it again?
Well, sure. In the home movie, you said that one of your biggest ambitions would be to see the Earth from space.
Yeah.
Would you still want to do that?
Yeah. To take the second half first, yes, I'd love to. I mean, we've all seen the pictures that have been seen from various spacecraft, from satellites and Apollos and things. What are they called? Rockets. Shuttles, thank you. Shuttles that go up there and take pictures of the Earth. And it must be quite extraordinary to, after millennia of being rooted to this planet, to be outside and looking at it. And it's certainly changed everybody practically that I've ever heard of who's ever done it. And they've all been altered in some way. It must have an effect on you. And obviously, I mean, I must be logical and acknowledge that I'm probably unlikely to have that opportunity.
I was wondering if we could get rid of
maybe your generation might be easier, but certainly my generation, I'm too old. I've never passed it anyway.
someone would have.
But if there was an opportunity
any help.
to go into that, I don't know. Wouldn't you all? Wouldn't everybody? That's a tiny part of that same spirit that when I was offered the opportunity, it started off as a fundraiser for the Red Devils, are a parachute, army parachute team in Britain, who do a lot of fundraising for charity, and they're totally self-supporting. The army doesn't support them, even though they come from the ranks of the army. And they needed a new aeroplane. The previous one was on its last legs. So there was a national fundraising campaign, and I got roped in. And they asked me if I'd jump with them. And I said, yeah, like a shot. So I did the 2 days training. It doesn't sound much, does it? But it's fairly intensive. And having done it once, I wanted to do it again. So I then did some fundraising for a charity I'm involved with, and persuaded 40 Doctor Who fans in Britain to come and do the training and jump with me. And we raised a lot of money and had a good time. It's a wonderful experience. It's only 2,000 feet. And the extraordinary moment is, of course, that there comes a point where you're sitting on the edge of an aeroplane, right? The door's open, you're sitting there, and there's 2,000 feet there, and all your life you've been taught that this is a somewhat silly thing to do, right? Like, sit on the windowsill 2 floors up, it's silly. 2,000 feet is even sillier. And yet you are actually going to push and go. That's the only difficult moment. The falling's quite easy. There's only 2 seconds of it that are difficult. There's that bit, and then there's that bit. But actually that bit's no worse than jumping off a 40-foot cliff. I enjoyed it. Of the 40 people who jumped with me, 1 twisted an ankle. But that's because he did something silly. As long as you land with your knees bent, you don't hurt yourself. Unless you land on your head, and it doesn't. The fact your knees are bent is irrelevant, really, isn't it? And we did a video of it to raise more money for the charity, which is still available. I think they put it on the end of my Mythmakers as well. You know those Mythmaker tapes that have been done where they interview various doctors. I think Tom Baker's just done another one, because he enjoyed doing the first one so much. And I think he's directing the second one himself. But I did one a couple of years ago now, which has been released, and they put some of the film of the parachute jump on the end. I did it also with as well as with John Nathan Turner and Eric Saywood, who I was still talking to then, and Sarah Lee, who used to be John's secretary. Yeah, Sarah Lee fan club, thank you. An actor called Ian Ogilvy. I don't know if he's ever been in a Doctor Who. He played the Saint on British television for some years. He's another actor. He was a friend of mine who heard I was doing it and joined in. So you'll see his face there too. Great fun. I recommend it for a hobby. Best with a parachute though. Thanks for your question. Okay, here we are. Howdy.
Hi.
What's your name?
Nathan.
Nathan?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Okay, I
Hi,
have 2
Nathan.
questions. First of all, you talked earlier about reprising the role of the Doctor.
Well, only in response to other people.
Yeah.
Modesty forbids.
Well, there's been quite a lot of rumors that I've heard. If you ever got the chance to be the Doctor again, like if Sylvester couldn't come back and they wanted to go back and do another Doctor, and they said, well, how about we finish Colin Baker, would you ever go back to? Well,
Hey, standing here with all these lovely people, and you asking me that question, how could I say no? But nonetheless, if I was sitting in an office in England and the bored BBC representative said, well, we're thinking of bringing him back and we'll pay you 4 and 9 pence. Basically, the answer is it totally depends. But I'm certainly not saying no. It would have to be a very interesting offer, not just in terms of payment, but in terms of what it entailed. I mean, I wouldn't come back and just do 4 weeks of it and with a bad script. But if there was a really exciting script, I mean, if there was a 5 Doctors or 6 Doctors or 9 Doctors special or whatever, and it was a good script and my Doctor had a fair crack of the whip in it.
and you got to wear a black suit.
And I got to wear a black suit, or whatever, then of course I would consider it on its merits. But if I had to weigh it in the balance against doing a year in something else that was new and exciting, I'd have to go for that. I mean, it's out there in the world as a possibility with all the others.
Yeah.
But the only difference being that having done Doctor Who, I know how much fun it is to do, and I know how much I miss it. So that would be a strong argument for doing it. But I mean, all the rumours that are going around, I mean, I'm sure Sylvester has told you, are just rumours. Nobody knows what's going on. I mean, there is nothing definite. It's just a kind of state of limbo. But I hope they treat Sylvester well, because I know what it's like to be on the end of what I consider slightly irritating treatment. And it looks as if Sylvester's going through something of the same at the moment, and I just don't think it's fair.
And then
He was telling me when your sexual knowledge is happening. I never got a real, it was one of those things where I was off or something.
when you
So I was
finished
like, do you need support
your
in the
first
room?
season or your
Do you
second
need
season
remote
as the
support?
doctor
And
or
I never
whatever,
really got an official answer.
Yes, I was the doctor.
Yes.
I was the
Really?
doctor.
Was that you? Did you like tape your own episodes and then go back and look at it and say, well,
I don't know why they
I should have done that differently and no, I don't like that.
I did tape them. I have got all my episodes on tape. I'm ashamed to say, big-headed this. But since I've taken, I've never actually watched them. I watched them when they were shown the first time, and that's when I was taping them. And I put the episode up on the shelf, and since I've always thought one day I'll look at them again, but as it's turned out, I never have yet. But the time is going to come, for instance, when my little girls are bigger, they're going to want to see where Daddy goes when he leaves the house for weeks on end. So I dare say I'll be forced to watch it. And it is quite useful. I mean, I keep most of the stuff I do on television for that reason, because every now and then it's useful to look, and because when you think you're being very economical and kind of meaningful, and you look at the TV and you see this great face going, like that, it's quite useful to remind yourselves about some of the techniques of acting and how economy is always, whatever you do, if you do less, it's better, usually. And it's something I've always found quite hard to do.
Okay, one more thing.
Oh, another one, third question.
No, not a question.
Are you feeling aggrieved over there?
I wanted to congratulate you on your newborn baby.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you guys should go back. Thank you very much. It's very nice. 3 girls I've got. Aren't I lucky? 3 little girls. Hello. How are you?
I know I reached out to them about
Excuse me, what's that thing you've got around your neck?
it.
You're Elaine, aren't you? You are. Say hello, Elaine.
Tomorrow.
Say hello, Colin, Elaine. Hello, Elaine. Burn your scarf.
They're now
Burn it. The scarf. Burn it. Burn it. Cast off the shackles. Be free.
what is this thing again?
Did you? All right, you can keep it then.
It's the one.
Hello, what's your question?
I read that we're in a series called Brothers.
Yes.
I was originally going to do this, but you said you're not
Can you
available.
tell us anything about that? I can't find any information.
Oh, The Brothers, yeah, okay. The Brothers was a series that was on in England from about 1969 to 1976. I was in it from 1973 to 1976. It's funny, because I did Doctor Who 83, 86, and I did The Brothers 73, 76. And a very similar thing happened at the end of The Brothers, is that we recorded what turned out to be our last episode, and said, see you next year for the new series, and never heard another word. It was a series which was extremely popular in England at the time. It was probably the most popular program on television. It was about a family of 3 brothers who had a trucking business. And my character was a kind of prototype JR, really, who was put in by the bank to get the business in order and took the whole thing over and treated everybody like dirt and had a wonderful time. It was a great part. I was the original yuppie. And that was before yuppies were thought of. Because I was only in my 20s when I played the part.
Kind of like, but only because you couldn't
And it was great fun. I was actually voted in a national newspaper, the same one we mentioned earlier, the most hated man in Britain. One time. Extraordinary. And old ladies used to attack me in the street and hit me with umbrellas and say, you're being horrible to Edward, who was the kind of favourite character in the programme. And I once went into an off-licence, or you call a liquor store, I think. And as I walked in, the man said, are you Paul Merony? I thought, oh no, someone else is going to insult me. I said, yes. He said, I want to give you this. And he passed me a Jeroboam of champagne, which are those huge champagne bottles. I said, what's this for? He said, I was watching you on television, and I saw the way you treated your employees, and I saw the way you treated everyone around you, and I saw how you made a lot of money. And I thought, that's the way to be successful. And I left my business, I sold my house, I invested it all in a shop. He said, no, because I've treated my staff the way you did on television. I've got 10 stores around London and I'm a millionaire. Thank you very much, he said.
And this is my question to you. From 8 to 9, the
I think it's what you call a backhanded compliment, really.
At 8 o'clock, they have that provider.
So I enjoyed the champagne. Thank you for your question. And keep wearing your scarf. I think she took me seriously. I didn't mean it honestly. I like scarves. They're very useful in this climate. Hello. Hello. What's your name? That's Melanie Ann, folks. It's good, this, isn't it? It's kind of group. It's lovely.
I started watching Doctor Who about 2 years ago, and at first I thought there was only one doctor. So last winter
Which one
I
was
saw
that?
Tom Baker, because he was the only one I ever saw.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
Oh.
it's not my fault. But last winter, I saw one of the Sixth Doctor for the first time, and at first I was really shocked.
That's the effect the Sixth Doctor has, I'm afraid.
Yeah, but of all the doctors, he's the one that I grew to like the quickest.
Really?
And I was wondering, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I'm really enjoying
I like you too, Melanie Ann.
But I was curious, I was wondering if you could remember what you first thought when you saw the script and saw how unstable your doctor was going to be, and if you knew what their reasoning was behind that.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I do. When John Nathan Turner rang me up and said, come and see me, and when I arrived he said, Peter Davison's leaving, I said, oh dear, I still didn't click. And he said, and I'm thinking perhaps you might, we might offer you the part of the Doctor. But first of all, I was astonished. And he said, take away all these old tapes, and he gave me tapes of all the previous Doctors, and come back next week and tell me how you think you'd like to play it, and we'll take it from there. So I came back, having watched the War Games, that interminable 59 episode of Dear Hans, which was very good. It took a long time to watch. Talons of Weng Chiang, Pyramids of Mars, an Auton story with Pertwee, a William Hartnell one about the Space Museum, was it? The Space Museum. And I can't remember which story Peters it was. And I watched them all, came back, and I said, obviously, from one Doctor to another, there's always been some sort of contrast. Because after Tom's huge, larger-than-life quality, it was quite right they should have Peter, who was kind of more low-key and subtle and gentle. So he needed to go the other way again with my character. And I had the idea that he should be kind of difficult to understand. That the one thing that, of all the characteristics that had gone through the Doctor over the years, was that thing of the fact that he comes from a planet called Gallifrey. He has 2 hearts, a different body temperature to ours, and he may well not react in exactly the way that you or I would react in a situation. And I think to make him always, for instance, get upset when something happens, because we would, is perhaps not the right way of looking at the Doctor. So I said it'd be quite nice, like I was saying earlier about Pride and Prejudice and Darcy, if at the beginning of this story, we find this man difficult to love, and we want to find out why he behaves as he does. Because there is a great temptation as an actor to go on stage and want to be loved. I've seen people playing villains in plays who want to be loved and try to play it as nicely as possible, so the audience won't think they're horrible. And it's quite difficult to do. It requires a certain amount of courage. And John was keen on this idea, and they probably took it further than I would have had courage to do. I thought, particularly in view of the fact in England, the first story, Twin Dilemma, came at the end of Peter Davison's season. So there was one story tacked on the end, and they had to wait 4 or 5 months before what you would see immediately afterwards, which was Attack of the Cybermen. There was 4 or 5 months between those 2 stories. So for all that time, they were thinking the Doctor is a monster, because in Twin Dilemma, the Doctor was fairly monstrous and arrogant. And I thought that was a nice quality as well. I think, someone who's been alive for, as it was then, 800 odd years, and has done all the things he's done, would be a little bit intolerant of stupid human beings sometimes, who don't just shut up and let him do what he wants to do. I thought that would be a facet of the personality. Underneath everything, of course, there is that quality that is the Doctor, which is all compassionate and all loving, etc. But you don't have to show it all the time. The most interesting things are things that are difficult to find. So there was a kind of long-term, 4-year plan, whereby gradually you'd learn more about this particular doctor and find out more about him. The rest was in the hands of the writers once we'd done that. So all that stuff about pushing Perry in front of me when I was threatened, I mean, that was allegedly a result of the difficulties of transmogrification, regeneration. Whereas Peter's doctor became kind of, and I think they realised later that was a mistake because it meant your central character was being carried around for the first 2 or 3 stories. So they decided to make mine come in with a bang and go so far that he was kind of thrown off course, which is what happened.
And that's basically how we reacted to it. At first it was like, why is he acting like this? And then it was, oh, we really love this guy.
It's quite interesting though, isn't it? It's brave. I like brave. What do you say? Yeah? Told you afterwards, lady. Yes. Hi.
Hi. My name is Sal.
What's your name?
Sal. Salvatore.
Hi, Sal.
I have 2 questions. One is, when you played Maxil in Peter Davison's story Arc of Infinity, while you were doing that story, did you ever think that you would be offered the part of Doctor Who so short a time after?
No way. It's an extraordinary story because I was doing a play in Brighton, I think, and my agent rang me up and said, look, you've been offered this small part of Maxil in a Doctor Who episode. And I always wanted to be in Doctor Who. And in fact, when I read that Tom Baker was leaving, I asked my agent to get in touch with the BBC and offer me as a possible doctor. And he said, well, they won't want you. And it's really good, my agent.
Get another one.
And I'll tell you another story about my agent later. And he did get in touch and they said, no, it's already been chosen, it's Peter Davison, so that was the end of it. And of course I didn't know Peter was leaving when I was asked to play it. But it was ironic because I thought it fits in perfectly, and even though it's a small part, and I don't really like doing small parts, I get bored, sitting around all day, getting up saying the odd line. It fitted in perfectly with the work I was doing, and they'd pay you for it, so I said, yes, I'll do it. And I thought it would twinge of regret, because there was always this thing that nobody could play the Doctor who'd already been in the programme playing something else. So I remember saying to my wife, oh, well, I'll never be the Doctor. Funny, isn't it, how it turns out? And if I hadn't done that story, I wouldn't have met John Nathan Turner, who for some reason subsequently thought I would be right for the Doctor. I think it was something to do with my performance as Maxil, which was slightly... well, I think Peter was a little confused by this actor coming in playing a small part in his programme. After all, he was Doctor who kind of took it over a bit. I remember I had this costume with this hat on with feathers on the top. And I didn't like the hat, and I was trying to get out of it all the time because it was uncomfortable. And when we got onto the set, I had to take it off because I couldn't get through the doors. And you can't have a guard going along and arresting someone going like that, getting through a door. So they allowed me to remove the hat and carry it. And it then looked like a chicken. All these feathers under my arm. And so I gave it a name. I called it Esmeralda. And in between scenes, I used to be talking to it. How are you, Esmeralda? So I was trying to get the chicken into the programme because we could get another feed in, you see. And it became the kind of standing joke in that particular episode. But I could see Peter watching all this going on. What? And now he had to put up with me as a successor as well. Tough, isn't it? I got to shoot him though. That's the way to become a Doctor. You zap him first. What was your other part of your question?
My second question was, how did you enjoy doing the episode with Gareth Jenkins, The Fix with Suntarans?
Gareth Jenkins! That's a lovely story. There's a program in Britain called Jim Will Fix It, where a chap called Jimmy Savile, you write to him and you say, I want to make chocolates. So they take you to the chocolate factory and you learn how to make chocolates. Well, hundreds of children over the years have been writing in saying that they want to meet the Doctor. And this boy called Gareth Jenkins wrote saying that he wanted to have his picture taken by the TARDIS, I think, because his mother had made him a Doctor Who costume, like mine. So they kind of went one better and recorded a kind of 10-minute scene, originally written for myself and Nicola and Gareth. But Nicola was on holiday when we were able to film it, so Janet Fielding, the companion the Sixth Doctor never had, that would have been an interesting combination, wouldn't it? the mouth that walks. I mean, the air would have, both of us, the air would have been vibrating there, certainly. We'd written this script, and it was a good script, but the problem was that one thing unfortunately I never had too much of was very technical language. And if I did, we usually had 2 weeks to rehearse it and learn it. On this occasion, we only had 1 day with the script, and I had a load of technical things to say.
Mandrel condensers, astral inducers.
All that sort of thing, yes. And Gareth Jenkins had to repeat it. So...
They love me.
So, normally, in a situation with another professional, if they have to repeat whatever you say, they don't bother learning it, you know. If you've got to repeat imble, bomble, bimble, you wait till the other person says imble, bomble, bimble, and you say imble, bomble, bimble, because it's, you know, you're repeating. Gareth Jenkins had learnt it, right? So if I made a slight mistake and said imble, bimble, bomble, he'd go imble, bomble, bimble. So I ended up doing something I vowed I would never ever do as the Doctor, because 1 or 2 of my predecessors had done it, which is write dialogue on the TARDIS console. And for that scene with Gareth Jenkins, I had to write it on, because we'd have been there all day with him correcting me. He was a nice lad.
Yeah, he didn't have much of a personality.
But it was great to work with Janet. I mean, Janet was great fun. And
Yeah,
some
she
talent
always
as well.
says that it was great working with you both on that and on Arkham Infinity.
Does she? Yeah, I got to work with Janet. Janet and I used to chat a lot on Arkham Infinity. But we're both very quiet, retiring people, that's why. What do you want?
I am pleased to say this is the last time I have to throw our guests off stage.
Have I got to go? But there's all these people, what questions?
Well, yes, but I thought you wanted to meet them one-on-one personally in the autograph.
Yes, I do want to meet them one-on-one personally.
Well, then get off the stage.
All right, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you very much. We must do it again sometime. Stand up! Stand up! Cheers. Corona. Thank you.
I'm so old. Now she's so young.
Just like babbling onto TV.
Have you watched Channel 25 since you've been here? I haven't had time. They have some really good shows on, you know. Yes. They have Doctor Who. Do they? Yeah. And do you know how they raise money for it? Well, they have things called pledge drives. And people like you and I go along, and we say to the camera something like, if you want to see more of Doctor Who or your favourite television programme,
Sylvester.
wonderful science programmes, the nature programmes, all those wonderful programmes, what you dial, 4, 5, 9, 2, 5, 2, 5, pledge.
Anything from 30, 60, 120, 180, 300,000, anything.
Yes,
money.
thousands of it. Yeah. And if you pledge a certain amount and come around here with it in cash, we'll say thank you very much.
Yes, in English.
Yes.
English?
Yeah, Scottish English.
Let me try to get this one question.
Hello. Right, you.
Oh, yes. There's a fine looking fellow.
Yes. Who is he? He's standing here, this thing in his hand. You want to ask a question? Yes.
I was wondering, there was some people who claim that with the explosives that Ace used during your first season,
yes,
that it's among the most violent of the Doctor. Any comment about that?
Any comment? Well, I will give you a comment, but we've got to wind up. There's a man going like this to me, and I think that means it's time now to go somewhere else.
I would find it. I think it's disgraceful.
What do you mean? I'm not violent.
Let's go back to Ken.
Doctors, it's great to have you next to the phone.
Ooh, doctors are using PBS personalities.
No, but I mean, the thing is about the Doctor, that I don't believe the Doctor should be violent. He's much more intelligent than that. But obviously he has to deal with violent situations, and hopefully win in the end.
But you had quite a violent time in the trial episodes, didn't you? A lot of falling around.
I was violent in that. But that was all lies. That was all total lies, you see.
Of fabric.
It was the distortions of the Matrix.
I do recall
Keep
that.
watching the show, folks. You'll understand what it is.
Actually, he read the script.
Yes, I did, yes.
Unlike some.
Yes, yes.
I just learn the lines and try not to bump into the monsters. My
That's a good one. Go on. I'll nick that. Thank you. Very good. Yes.
Yeah, so that was your quote that he just uttered.
Yes. Yes.
Is it physically demanding to go through a lot of pain? Does the Doctor need a doctor?
Yes, it is hard work. It's hard work, but but like all hard work in a good cause, making programs for you out there so that you can pledge, so you can watch them. It's fun. It's fun, isn't it?
It's very enjoyable.
So it's like, I mean, if you play a strenuous sport, it's hard work but fun. It's the same.
Yes.
I'd like you both to join me in one of our favorite numbers.
What?
459 25
25.
There you go. Just send money. We don't mind.
Yes.
Any kind can be dirty.
Send your
I mean,
friends with money.
That's right.
Second-hand money.
It'll be plastic.
New money.
Rubles.
Dial up.
Rubles will soon be
Dial now.
acceptable.
Yes, rubles, anything.
Without your money, the screen goes whoop. That means you.
Any dirty
No.
money you've got. If you wanted long,
We're losing control here. Let's go back to
we'll
camp.
put it in the washing machine for you.